Hi, this is Suzette Allen. We're going to do a quick little video to show you how to make an action to make a proof page and overlay your logo and then run it as a batch through Image Processor. I was speaking in Minnesota recently and one of the attendees had a question and she wanted to know how to make a 5x7 proof page with a 4x5 print on it, offset over to the side for binding, overlaid with her logo so she could make nice little proof books. Well, this little video is going to show you how to do that. Let's get started. So I have a folder of images of Isabel. These are actually my images, and I want to show you how to make that action. So first I'm going to open up any image, and then I'm going to use that to record with. So I'm going to do Control-0 to make it large. So I'm going to go over to my action panel, and let's scroll down, and let's just make a new folder. Oh, let's see. Let's just make one called the set demo actions. And then we're going to hit new action, and we'll call this 5x7 proof page with overlay. And I'm going to hit record. Well, the first thing we want to do is record this as a crop to a 4x5 at 300 dpi. So, in order for my crop to be exactly at the right place on every file, no matter what, I need my image to be 4 inches wide, regardless of the resolution. So I'm going to do Control-Alt-I, or image size, and I'm just going to uncheck resample, and I'm going to make this 4 inches wide. I really don't care that it changes the resolution to 648. I just want it to be 4 inches wide. And I say OK. Notice my image didn't change at all. It's just the rulers changed. Then I'm going to go over to my crop tool. Now on the crop tool in CS6, in order to put in 4x5 at 300 dpi, you actually have to hit this drop down and go down to size and resolution. So I'm going to put in here 4x5. And my resolution is going to be 300, and I'm going to hit OK. And it puts it right in the center. Now, I know that it needs to be adjusted for this image, but while I'm recording, I'm just going to leave it in the center. And in my playback, I'll be able to modify it. So I'm just going to hit Enter to accept, and then get out of the crop tool. So there's my crop. Now I want to add my canvas size. But before I do that, I want to make sure this is not a background because I want to have a nice little key line around there. So I'm going to double click on my background to name it something different like layer 0. Then I'm going to double click on here and go to my layer style. So I think I just want a stroke of white. And I'm going to put it on the inside because on the outside it doesn't show. We'll do it on the inside. And, oh, just a little one is fine. Probably like 10 pixels is good. That looks nice. And then let's do an inner shadow. So then we can see it just a little bit. We'll do, there we go. That looks a lot more dimensional. And then I'm going to hit OK. So now my image is a layer 0. That means when I add canvas, it will be blank around it, which is good. And then I can fill it with whatever color I want. So let's change the canvas size. Image, canvas size, and remember we want to make it just a little bit smaller than 5 inches wide, so it'll be 4.75, and we want it to make it height of 7. It'll be a 5x7 in the end, but I want to make it just a 1/4 inch shorter so we can add that extra 1/4 inch only to one side. So on the canvas size, I'm going to keep this centered because I want it to be centered on the image. That looks just right. Now let's do that extra 1/4 inch extension off to one side. Control-Alt-C for canvas size, and this time I'm going to change this to 5. But notice on this little anchor, I'm going to anchor it to the side, so it's going to only add it over to the left. Isn't that great? And look at that. See, now I have it offset for the binding. So now we need to make a new layer to fill it with black or white, whatever color you want. I'm going to hold the Control or Command key and hit my new layer. That way it makes the new layer underneath the one that I have. If you didn't do that, you could always just drag it underneath. So I'm going to do Edit, Fill, and I'm going to choose white for my background and fill it and say OK. So that looks nice right there. Oh, you know what I also forgot? I forgot to do a little drop shadow. Should we do that now? No, we'll fix that one later. So now I've got this laid out. I think I'm finished. Oh, except I need to add my logo. Okay, so the next thing is to click on the top layer and add my logo. You do not want to click on any layer because you don't know what the name of this layer will be when you're playing your action. And if it's not layer 0, it's not going to work. So always use the command keys. So if you hold Alt and period, it selects the top layer. See that? Select front layer. That's perfect. Now I'm going to place my logo. So I'm going to go into here to File, Place. Now I need to go to where I always have my logos. I can never move it from here or I won't be able to play my action. So I'm going to go to my desktop, to my documents, and then in my documents is where I have all my overlays for my actions. So I'm going to go to my Picture of Hope logo line, PNG, and hit Place. Now the cool thing about this is it places it in the center, pretty much, and it pre-sizes it to my file, which is great. I'm going to hit Enter to accept it. Now, just because it looks like it's centered doesn't mean it is, and next time you play it, it may or may not be. So what I need to do is make sure that it is centered. So I'm going to do a Select All, Control A, so my whole background document is selected, the outer bounds of the document, and then that layer is selected. So when I go over to the Move tool, I can go to my alignment buttons here on the top, and I can say Align to the center and Align to the center, vertically and horizontally. Now it's truly lined up, centered. That's going to be key because the amount that you move it in the action will be consistent and it'll be in the right spot. So that looks good. I'm going to deselect. Now what I want to do is move it down. Rather than clicking and dragging, you shouldn't do that. You should do Control T to transform and just use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move it down about where you want it. That looks good. I do want to size it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to hold Shift and size it a little bit smaller, just like that. And I'm going to hit Enter. I also want it white, so Control I will make it white. Kind of need it to stand out from a white background now. So let me double click on this and I am going to add a drop shadow. So we've got a little bit of a drop shadow and make it kind of soft, and I want my white words to be faint also. So up here in the layer style where it says blending options default, I'm going to change that, not the opacity but the fill. The fill makes the white part go away, but that leaves the shadow. Isn't that great? So I'm going to turn that down to about 50% just so it's kind of faint, and I'm going to say OK. Now that looks perfect. I think I'm going to stop recording right now. I'm going to go over here to my action palette and hit stop. So everything looks great. I don't have to put a flatten command or anything in this because I'm going to be running it with the image processor. Now, you did remember that I didn't like my layer style that I did, right? So I'm going to add one more thing to my layer style. Here's how easy it is to change a command in an action. I'm going to go back to this command where I set my layer styles of the current layer. I do have to make sure that I'm on that current layer. And then just double clicking on it will let me change it. Just like that. It knows what it was. And I can just go in here and add a little drop shadow. And see, doesn't that look so much better? Have that little drop shadow around the outside edge. And I'll say, OK. And look at that. It stopped recording. So when you double click on a command in an action, it'll allow you to re-record it, and then it stops automatically. So easy. Well, I am really happy with the way this looks. Let's now try it and make sure it works. So I'm going to go back in my history, go back to my original image, and then go to my action. Now, one thing I do want to do when it goes to the crop, I want to be able to adjust my crop because remember, this one's offset. Centering doesn't work. So here's what you do. On your crop command, you just check the little box. That means it's going to stop at that spot and let you adjust it, which is awesome. That's perfect. That's what we want. So let's just hit play. And look, it stopped. And it's going to let me reposition her crop and hit enter. And then it'll continue. Look at that. It's perfect. Okay, so now it's tested. We know it works. Now let's add the image processor and do the whole folder at one time. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to take our action that we created and we're going to run it as a batch action through Image Processor and the bridge. Now we recorded that for vertical images, and a horizontal image needs to be rotated and the logo has to be sideways as well. So what we're going to have to do is make a different action for the horizontals. But we want to make this easy on ourselves. So how do we separate the verticals and horizontals in here? Here's the easy way. In the bridge, down here where it says filter. Now if your filter panel's not showing, you can go to window and choose filter here and it will show up. But in the filter, you can see there's orientation. If I turn that little arrow down, check this out. If I click on landscape, those are 9 horizontals. And if I click on portrait, there's 7 portrait ones. So easy. So now I'll be able to select all 7 of these and go up here to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. Now with Image Processor, a little window pops up, and this is going to allow me to choose the images to process. Now it knows that I have 7 picked in the bridge. I'm going to select a location. I always save it in the same location. And what it'll do is it'll put them all in a folder for me, so I don't have to worry about overwriting my originals. Now my file type, I want to save it as a JPEG at level 10, and I don't really need to resize to fit because this action actually makes it into a 5x7 already, so I don't have to worry about that. Then the section number 4, the preferences, this is where I choose my action to run. You can run one action. So I'm going to click Run Action, and I'm going to choose my demo actions, and then I'm going to choose my 5x7 proof page with overlay, and I'm going to hit Run. It's going to go and open up every image from that folder and stop and let me adjust the crop. So I can adjust that one and hit Enter, and then it'll finish the job. It opens up the next one, and I adjust it. Actually, that one was pretty much okay. The nice thing is, if the crop is perfect already, you just hit Enter. If it needs to be adjusted, then you do so. Now, if you're super consistent and you don't need to adjust your crops, and the right in the center works for you for every image, you can uncheck that little mark over there so it doesn't stop and just let it go. Go have dinner while it does your work for you. That's ideal. But if you need to be able to adjust, then you're good. The other thing is you can make this so it's 4x6 images, and then you don't have to worry about cropping. But a lot of people like to crop it to the 4x5 ratio since people like to order 8x10s. But it's your prerogative however you want to do it. Looks like that was the last image. Let's go to Isabel Selects. Now here, this is where it's going to show all of my images, and it'll also show my folder. I'm just going to hit F5 to refresh, and let's go down here to my filter and uncheck portrait. There we go. So now everything's showing. Here's my folder, my JPEGs. Let me double check on that, and let's open. There they are, all of them in an overlay with the logo right on top. Isn't that awesome? So next what we're going to do, we are going to modify our action for the horizontals, and we'll run the other half. Okay, this time what we're going to do is we're going to modify our action so that we can do it with horizontals. I don't really want to rewrite the whole thing, so let's just modify the one that we have. Now, I didn't actually note in the name of this that it was a vertical, so I'm just going to make this V for vertical, and then I'm going to close it up, and then let's duplicate it by dragging it to the new action box. So now we have 2, and this one we're going to call it H for horizontal. And so there's the first part. We've got it named differently. Now we have to change the action. So the action's all fine. I just need my image to be vertical first, right? So if I just add a command that rotates my image, that will work. So I'm going to select the name of my action, and I'm going to go to the flyout and say Start Recording. So you can see the red button's recording. I'm just going to go Image, Rotate Canvas, 90 degrees counterclockwise. There we go. And I'm going to hit Stop. So now it threw the action, it threw that command to the end of the action. Well, that's not where I want it. I want it to do that first. That's no problem. So I just drag that action up to the top. So now we have Rotate First Document. And it doesn't matter that it says First Document. It'll work fine. And then it'll still do image size and the crop and let me adjust it. It'll do all this just fine until the end. Okay, so let's just try it. However, don't forget to take this back to the original rotation or it's going to be wrong. So I'm going to go back to my history, open it up to be horizontal, and then I'm going to play this and see what it does. And the crop looks good. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so that looks good. I just need to modify my overlay, right? So what we're going to do is go to the last step in that action, click on it, and then let's do a little transformation. So I'm going to hit the fly out, go to start recording, and now I'm recording. I'm on that layer. Now it ends on that layer, so I don't have to worry about that. It's already there. And I'm going to do Control T for transform, and I'm going to roll it over to vertical. I'm holding Shift so it snaps to even. And then I'm going to use my arrow key to move it up. And then my other arrow key to move it over to about where I would want it. That looks good, and hit enter. And I think that works great. So let's call it good and try it out. Let's go back to our history, go back to the original image the way it was, and make it smaller. And then go to my action, go to the name of the action, and hit play. And it lets me crop it. Okay, that looks good. And voila, there you go. It's perfect. So now let's go back to our whole folder, and we will go to the orientation and just do the landscape ones. We'll select all the landscape ones, and we'll go Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. Everything should be all set up except the action. I'm going to change that to the H version and hit run. And we will just try it out. And by the way, sometimes on the horizontals it shows too much of the image and I can't see the whole thing. So each time it comes up, if it's too big, I just do Control or Command minus minus to make it small, and I can see where I want my crop and be able to position and hit enter. So this won't take long at all. Okay, so that was the last one. Let's go take a look at the JPEG folder, and we will uncheck landscape, and there we go. They're all in there and they're all finished. Looks great. Hope that helped you out. Hope you guys can save your own logo and make an overlay like this. If you don't have your logo already saved as a PNG so you can throw it into an action like that, stay tuned. I'm going to make a quick little video on how to do that. Thanks a lot. Let me know how this worked for you. And if you have any other special requests, please email me at Suzette@SuzetteAllen.com, and I would love to help you out.